All right, let's break down one of the most influential personal finance books ever written, Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We're going to dive into the foundational lessons and the simple yet powerful stories that have totally changed how millions of people think about money. So let's get right into it.
So the whole book is really built around this one simple idea. As a young boy, the author, Robert, he had two major father figures in his life, his biological dad, who he calls Poor Dad, and his best friend's father, the Rich Dad. And this one quote just captures the whole thing perfectly. They gave him completely opposite advice about money, work, and life. And wow, the difference in how they saw the world, it could not be more night and day. Poor Dad was this highly educated guy, had a PhD, but he always seemed to be struggling with bills. He kind of viewed money as this corrupting force. But Rich Dad, who actually never even finished the 8th grade, had the exact opposite take. He believed that the struggle for money, the lack of it, was the real root of evil.
And this right here, this perfectly captures the two different paths they were pushing. One path is to be an employee, right, to seek security inside a system that someone else built. The other path is to be the owner, to be the one who builds the system itself. This one fundamental choice, presented to Kiyosaki as just a kid, would end up shaping his entire financial future.
Okay, so this brings us to lesson number 1. And honestly, it's probably the most important idea in the whole book. Rich Dad wanted to teach the boys this crucial concept, but not through some boring lecture. Nope, he was going to teach them through direct and, frankly, pretty painful experience. So get this, when Kiyosaki and his friend Mike were just 9 years old, they went to Rich Dad and asked him to teach them how to get rich. So what does he do? He offers them a job dusting canned goods in one of his stores, and the pay? A measly 10 cents an hour. It was tedious, it was boring, and after a few weeks, it was just infuriating. And yeah, that was exactly the point. Rich Dad explained he was intentionally letting life push them around. He wanted them to feel that frustration, that feeling that all your hard work is getting you nowhere. He was teaching them to recognize the trap of working for a tiny paycheck before they got stuck in it for the rest of their lives. He called this trap the rat race, and he said it's a cycle that's fueled entirely by emotion. It all starts with the fear of not having enough money, which pushes you to get a job. Then you get paid, and desire kicks in for all the cool stuff you can buy. So you spend more, which, you guessed it, eventually brings that fear right back. It's a loop that so many people get caught in. You see, Rich Dad's whole point was that this rat race, it's run by these two really raw, powerful human emotions. Fear is what gets you out of bed into a job you might not even like. And then greed, or what he called desire, that's what has you dreaming of a bigger paycheck, for a bigger house, or a nicer car. And together, they just keep you running on that hamster wheel. Okay, so the boys finally get the trap, right? They understand the emotions behind it. So Rich Dad hits them with the next phase of their education, a real test to see if they could actually break out of that way of thinking. Rich Dad's next move, man, it was just audacious. After the boys complained about the super low pay, his solution was to take their pay away completely. He told them, keep working the same hours, but for $0. His goal was to force their brains to stop thinking about earning a paycheck and start looking for opportunities. And this is where things get really interesting. This is where the big breakthrough happens. By taking away that carrot of a paycheck, he forced them to open their eyes and see what everyone else was just walking right past. So now they're faced with this huge question, right? How in the world do you make money when you're not getting paid to work? It completely shifted their perspective from being these passive earners to becoming active creators of money. And that's a really powerful mental switch. So while they're working for free, they start to notice something. The store manager, she would rip the covers off the old comic books to send back for credit. And what about the rest of the comic? She just threw them away. To everybody else, this was just trash. But to them, it was an opportunity. It's so simple, but it's genius. They asked the manager if they could just have the old comics. And they took this free stuff and opened up a comic book library in an empty room in Mike's basement. They charged the other kids in the neighborhood 10 cents to get in, and they could stay for 2 hours and read as many comics as they wanted. And the results? For two 9-year-olds, absolutely staggering. They were pulling in $9.50 a week. Think about that compared to the 30 cents they used to make for 3 hours of hard work. They even hired Mike's sister to be the librarian. And that's the big lesson right there. The crucial point is that they had created a business, an asset, that made money for them even when they weren't physically there. They weren't working for money anymore. They had finally figured out how to make money work for them. You see, that whole experience, That whole elaborate lesson was designed to drill one single golden rule into their heads. It's the foundation for this entire way of thinking. And here it is, rule number 1. According to Rich Dad, this is the only rule you really need to know. It sounds almost too simple, doesn't it? But he argued that pretty much all financial struggle comes from people not truly understanding this one single concept. It's the filter for every single financial decision you make.
And I love this part. He didn't hit them with some complicated textbook definition. He made it beautifully simple, and it's all based on cash flow. An asset is anything that generates income and puts money into your pocket. Just think about that for a second. What in your life actually does that? And on the flip side, a liability is anything that costs you money. It takes money out of your pocket month after month. The direction the cash is flowing, that's the only thing that matters. And this is where most people get into a whole lot of trouble.
So if you zoom out, this is basically the game plan for two different groups of people. The rich focus their lives on building up a column of assets that generate income. But the poor and the middle class, they tend to spend their money on liabilities that they mistakenly believe are assets. Things like fancy cars, boats, and other stuff that just constantly drains their bank account.
And that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? This is exactly why having a high-paying job doesn't automatically make you rich. A doctor who earns a ton but spends it all on expensive liabilities is still stuck in the rat race. True wealth isn't about the size of your salary, it's about how much of that salary you can turn into assets that work for you.
And just like that, we're back where we started. This fundamental confusion, this mix-up between what's an asset and what's a liability, that's the fuel that keeps the rat race going. People work harder and harder to earn more money only to spend it on things that take more money out of their pockets, which, of course, forces them to work even harder.
So, I'll leave you with the book's most famous and maybe most controversial question. Using Rich Dad's super simple definitions, I want you to think about your own life, your home, the place you live. Does it put money in your pocket month after month, or does it take money out for the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, the repairs? The answer to that question reveals whether you're building a foundation for real wealth or just running faster and faster in the race.